We're working on the topic of sensory substitution and brain plasticity. The idea that it's possible to send visual information in the form of touch, in the form of sound, for people who are born blind. And we're studying how the brain reacts to this information. Basically, we see that it's the visual parts of the brain that are becoming activated when they learn to use a sensory substitution device that's sending visual information in the form of touch. For example, here you can see this device that is sending visual information in the form of vibration. So the closer you are to an object, and the more this device will vibrate in order to give you the distance to this object. So this is a very simple sensory substitution device that can recruit the visual cortex of people who are born blind.
Where else does this research take us?
So we've been doing research on detecting obstacles, navigating around objects, trying to find your way out of a room. This kind of device can help blind people to detect the opening of a doorway, for example, if there's a car passing by, to cross the street. Another way to send visual information is not through touch, but through sound. And it takes a little longer to learn, but you get a better resolution. You're able to recognize complex faces and the expression on these faces.
Using the voice or using other devices we're developing, you could scan every single picture in the world. The way it works, it takes the image, and imagine that the image is made of lots of little squares, like a computer image, like pixels. Okay? We have a sweep line going from left to right, so that at every moment we're hearing an entire column of images, an entire column of pixels. Okay? Now, what do we actually hear? The brighter the pixel, the higher the volume. The higher it is on the y-axis, the higher the tone, the higher the pitch. In other words, the higher we're going up, we have a higher frequency. The line sweeps. Let's say we have a line going down in diagonal. So we'll hear a tone going lower and lower. The frequency becomes lower and lower. So we can basically hear any shape possible. Now, the blind people don't know some of these shapes. For example, one of our blind subjects looked to the sky and for the first time in his life saw a rainbow, but he had no idea what it was. All he knew was that the voice was sounding something like half circular in the sky. So he asked me, what is that? And I explained, it's a rainbow. And then he's like, I studied about rainbows in the Gemara. I wanted to always see one. Now I'm finally seeing a rainbow for the first time in my life. But wait, can I say the blessing of it? That's a good question, and it's an open question.
Because it's the blessing of the sight.
Yeah, because it's a blessing on sight, like B'lkot HaReiyah.
And as you learn to understand this algorithm, you can recognize more and more complicated shapes until you can recognize complex faces and the expression on these faces.
So the blind person basically learns a new language.
Basically, he's learning a new language and he's learning a new sense because all of a sudden auditory information is taking on visual properties. They're able to describe shapes with this information. They're able to describe the distance to an object, things that normally you're not able to do with sound or is now possible to do with sound, and it's a new sense that's taking on visual properties. The most interesting part about this is the way the brain is reacting to this information. That it's not the brain is treating the sense, the information that's coming from the ears, or that if it's coming from touch, as if it were real vision coming from your eyes. So the part of the brain that we're using when we recognize faces with our eyes, for example, is the same part of the brain that this person who's born blind is going to use when they're recognizing faces through sound or recognizing the facial expression with sounds. So we call this, the idea is that there's a conservation of function for the areas that are specialized in different tasks. For example, if you send movement through sound, or if you send movement through sensory substitution devices, this will recruit the areas of the brain that deal with movement and vision as well. So this is brain plasticity, the ability of the brain to rewire itself, to reinvent itself, to be able to use the other remaining senses more efficiently. And that's what we're trying to tap into in the lab, to build devices that can help improve the quality of life of blind people around the world.